buzzword in today's world, with people demanding it of everything from their governments and employers to the stores and venues they patronize. But it's a two-sided coin. On the one hand, people want to hold these organizations accountable when they do a perceived wrong. On the flip side, and definitely a more positive view, transparency helps to build trust. When businesses take the proactive approach of being upfront with customers, those patrons are less likely to suspect they're being taken for a ride. Stefan Rossi, founder and owner of Ace Racing Engines, is aiming to promote transparency within the performance industry, and he's starting with his own shop. All right, Steph, how would you sum up the state of the industry in one sentence?
Organized chaos.
Okay, well, all right, that's a fun description. Tell me a little bit more about that. Why do you think it's organized chaos?
It's very organized, like in workload and schedule and stuff. But some things can take a hell of a long time, a lot longer than initially quoted for or estimated for in terms of lead times.
Right.
And obviously we don't make everything. We don't make anything in-house. We machine it in-house, but we don't make anything in-house. So waiting for blocks, cranks, they're the worst. Cranks are a bit better now, but waiting for blocks from different manufacturers can take a hell of a long time, and some cylinder heads. So that being put in the middle between the manufacturer and the customer, if I say it's going to be 5 months, because I have a lot of engines to build all the time, we're about 6 to 8 months at the moment. If I say it's going to be 5 months, and still at 5 months I still don't have a set of cylinder heads or an intake or even a block or a crankshaft, it can get very. But we were promised we would have it within 4 to 8 weeks, say. It gets very awkward being in between the customer and the manufacturer, and if the customer's got a race to meet, like a date, it gets very annoying. We also have customers are all great, but I also have customers that seem to, the mentality is that they have to have their stuff tomorrow, and that can get very stressful. It doesn't happen a lot, but when we have the part delays, it can be. So it is like all day, every day. It isn't just the doors closed, music on loud, building an engine or machining an engine all day, every day. It's a lot of running around, chasing up places, speaking to different customers, new customers. So it's like perfect. I think it is organized chaos, and it is very hustle and bustle all day, every day, non-stop. It's not. Yeah.
Okay, so and you've kind of spoken to a little bit about what I want to talk about next. So it sounds like the industry could be perhaps doing better with these lead times on parts. But what do you think the industry is doing right?
Social media maybe has a big role to play. Before we used to read magazines and look at the engine build articles in magazines and stuff, and still do and like to do that. But I think social media really makes you step your game up more than what maybe more old school guys would have done. How do you guys approach social media? What do you guys do with it? So I take pictures of everything as I do it. Like I can look on my phone right now and tell you the amount that's on there. It's 178,000 pictures.
Oh,
so,
wow!
It just that will, they'll all go into different albums for different customers. But I will post a series of 10, I think you're allowed 20 now, pictures on Instagram of machining, assembly, measuring, assembly, cylinder head stuff. And that'll be like maybe 10 or 20 pictures of the short block stuff. I'll post that on social media. really it's 90% for the customer, so they can see it, and I get to tag them in it, and I tag all the manufacturers and the brands in it as well, and that's for those. And then there's, you know, like 10% kind of advertising showing what we do at the same time, but it's for the customer, because I have overbearing stress all the time of keeping on schedule, and feel like the most stressful man in America sometimes, you know, all the time. And so I'll often try, not rush, but I'll get the work done, get to a stage where I'm happy with, like, you know, crankshafts in, maybe cam timing and a couple of rods and pistons are in, or it's a complete short block, and then post, and I can't wait to like post that to show the customer, like, hey, here you are, tag them, like, or even if very rare that they're not on social media, we'll put them in the file on Dropbox and email them that, and you know, here you go, and I know when I've had transmissions built and stuff that I could not wait to see pictures of stuff like that, and being a car guy racing and into hot rods and cars yourself, you know, I know that if it was me ordering a $60,000-$70,000 engine, that I would love to see those and know that those parts that were on the invoice that are actually in the engine. It's exciting. I love doing that for people. I think it, so that's what I use it for, really. And then I guess it just happens to be a great advertisement as well at the same time.
Well, yeah, so. No, and I love that for you. It's, you know, 90% accountability, basically, transparency, which is such a, you know, buzzword in today's business community, is being transparent with the customer. You know, you're showing them that, hey, this is what we're doing. We're trying to keep to your schedule here as best that we can. You know, whether the manufacturer of parts can keep up or not, you know, that's up to them, but you are doing your part for sure. So with these engine builds you're doing, what are some of the most kind of popular engine trends or applications that you've noticed, you know, people wanting?
A lot of max effort small block stuff. Okay. Will be mainly just like 80% of what we're doing at the moment. A lot. The last 18 months to maybe 2 years has been all billet block stuff, which I think stems from COVID and manufacturers during COVID taking a hell of a long time, 2 years in some cases, for cast iron or aluminum blocks. People breaking aluminum blocks quite a lot. I haven't had any of my customers break any aluminum blocks. We've done very well with them, so can arguably be a lot in the tune, and I believe that it is. The cost, since COVID, everything went up a lot, as you're probably fully aware, and things have started to come down a little bit, but mainly, you know, it's like gas has gone up, and it stayed up, and that's like block prices have gone up, and material have gone up, and most of the time it's stayed up. And so when you at $9,000 or more for a cast aluminum block, no one wants to spend that much. Well, they do, but they're not going to spend that much and go, well, for another $1,500 I can have a billet block, or another, you know, they're going to jump straight to the billet block, and that's where everything's gone recently, is to that. And yeah, we've seen a lot of small blocks. We're getting a lot more big blocks now, so it's like we went straight to all the small block max effort stuff, and now it's coming back round now to the big block stuff, and it'll be customers that want a cast aluminum Brodix block, because the classes they race in don't allow a billet block, and there's a lot of classes, no time classes and stuff like that. So I was on the phone yesterday to a guy for one of those specifically, and yeah, I think, but all in all, billet seems to be where everything's going, that we're doing anyway. You're machining these blocks yourself, or? Finish machining them, yeah. So they come, you know, cylinders, sleeves installed, and sometimes we're going to get a few without the sleeves installed because we want to do a certain few things before we do that. But we will bore them set the sleeves if they're in there already, bore them, put the receiver grooves in for the hoops, hone them. Sometimes if they're a wet one, we'll deck them so everything's nice and flat, or we'll set the sleeve a little bit higher or stuff like that. Line hone stuff, finished machine, like with the because the companies that make these blocks, they have a lot of the stuff to make the block be a finished block, but we have, for example, we have a Sunnen SV30 CNC honing machine, have 8-stone head. We're about to get a 12-stone diamond head. So the board geometry we can get and the surface finish that I've really dived into and can achieve, not to sound big-headed, is probably a lot better than what the people who are supplying the block or blocks can do. And so I will never get a block from, they will, and they do supply pretty much everyone else the block finished. Cam bearings installed, honed, everything. I don't want that at all. I want no cam bearings in there, and I want to do the honing and some of the finished stuff myself, so I can control that stuff. That's, but they'll look like a finished block,
yeah.
but the fine details need to be carried out,
yeah.
like what it's going to be used for, how much main clearance you want it takes, how much we hone the main tunnel and stuff, which
Yeah, and now you referenced earlier that a crash with your vehicle during sick week kind of prompted you guys to get your own machining. Like, can you explain a little bit more in detail what about that crash led to this decision?
Okay, so my car cost me ridiculous money to finish, and it was a NA small block, and it's now a twin turbo, large frame Garrett's, fuel injection, fuel tech, overdrive gear vendor's transmission, a full drag and drive car from a race car. And we did 2 passes, one short pass that was not even a full pass really, and then the first full pass under power was when that happened. And looking at the log and everything, and we could see the coolant pressure was the reason why. We initially thought that we'd cracked the cylinder head, and to protect the guy that had done the machining for me, I just kind of blamed it on the cylinder head cracking, but it wasn't. The heads are fine. Jerome actually has them on his engine. I gave them to him, and he's using them. But we've took out what was previously done to them that caused the crash, and that was, we used top fill hoops, so they're a 1-piece stainless hoop, no gap or anything, and they're quite like 40 or 50 thou thick and about 70 or 80 thou tall, square on one end, and that is in the cylinder head, and then on the end that pushes into the gasket, the side that pushes into the gasket, it's like rounded, like almost like a point. I had asked for that from the machine shop that we were using then, but we didn't get that. We got O-rings, and when questioned, I remember the phone conversation, yeah, we do it in the ProMod stuff all the time, you won't have a problem. And I was kind of naive back then and thought, they've been doing it a lot longer than what I have, kind of the mentality of kid from England, they know what they're talking about, they've been here for ages in business, listen to them, ran it. Obviously after the crash, took the engine apart and found that the O-rings that they had put in, common sense dictates that when you're going to do an O-ring, it's a wire, you have to cut it to size and you put it in. Well, you would cut it with a set of straight pliers, dikes I think they're called, or not, and you would overlap, put a chamfer so it overlaps each other and there's no gap. These guys had cut them with just normal clippers, which have a jaw like this, and cutted edges like that, and there was basically a point on the end of each, and they butted them together, but they didn't even butt them. There was a small gap, so when we took the engine apart, we could see the darkness in the copper where the water had gone, which also means the cylinder pressure can escape as well because there's no hoop there. So that's why we crashed, because of the coolant pressure, and we crashed. So I don't mean to blab on about that, but that then was right. No more outside machining. We have to have all of this stuff in-house. I can't offer these, 25, 3.5, 4,000 horsepower engines, relying on someone else to do them.
What was the learning process for machining like? How did you
Yeah,
go about
steep. I had no CNC experience at all. G-code, what the hell is that? Like, I had no clue. M-code, I had no clue. So now, obviously I do now, and I'm pretty good, I think, for writing the programs to do all my stuff. And we could have bought a Rottler or a RMC. We couldn't afford a 260, 300K machine. And maybe they come with the software, the programs, but kind of looked outside the box and just thought, use your brain. It's a CNC machine. At the end of the day, buy a good CNC machine. So we brought a Haas, and they might not be a Mazak or anything, but they for what I'm using the machine for is probably 5 or 10% of what the machine can do. The machine can make intricate, tiny parts or big parts with very beautiful machining lines. I'm using it to draw, to machine a round groove or bore a hole or deck a surface. It's 5% of the machine's capabilities, but it was a margin. It was like 110 grand for the machine versus almost 300K. And I have Fusion 360 and I write the programs myself, and it has been a steep learning curve. I have only junked one block. I obviously practiced on a lot of factory blocks, and I junked one. I didn't junk it. I could change the sleeve. I am gonna bore it out and put darting sleeves in it, but I did put a chamfer on one of the cylinders. Really way bigger, too big a chamfer on one of the cylinders. But yeah, I've never junked anything in the honing machine. I had a honing machine before. It was a manual one, air-assisted manual. So using the CNC honing machine, it's nowhere near as hard as what it used to be. People think that you just press the button and go. I mean, you do, but there's a lot of setup, all different blocks, all the different files I have saved for different honing different blocks or machining different hoops or decking or anything. I stand by the machines. Only recently have I started walking away from the machine and doing something else while the machine is maybe hooping a head or a block or something, or boring. But it takes a lot of time to write the programs and stuff. But to me, those nights staying till 1, 2 a.m. in the morning, doing all that stuff, it's way worth it to understand fully what I'm doing and to be able to write any program I want than paying almost 300K and relying on that company to, if you wanted, say, do a stroker clearance program, you would have to phone that company and say, hey, can you write it for me, or do you have one? And then you buy. And I talked to them a lot, and we were originally going to do that until we couldn't afford it, and we realized that we can just programming's programming. You can learn to do it yourself, and we've done that way. And we've helped a lot of people since, not a lot, but a few people since get into Hasses, or any. It doesn't have to be a Hass. Any machine that can fit a block in, and how to write what I use and stuff.
Do you have any advice for other engine builders who maybe, have been in your situation where originally they thought they would never, machine their own parts, but now they're like, maybe, except I don't know anything.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to them?
Just buy the best machine you can buy. Don't skimp out. Like, we bought the SV30 vertical honing machine. We did not have to spend 130K on a honing machine. We could have got an SV15 for like 55K, I think they start at, plus tooling. But buy the best machine and just dive into surface finish and dive into CNC machining, and just don't buy a second-hand CNC machine. Well, you could buy a second-hand hone if it's got low hours and being maintained, but just buy the best now versus buying less now and doing it again 5 or so years down the line, and then having to have spent even more. And there's plenty of people, myself and other people, that are willing to help anyone that wants to go down the HAS route or whatever, their own, and not the automotive machine route. And there's a lot of information, I think, out there on the internet.
It's tough in this industry, well, it's tough in any industry to find employees, but also, especially in this industry, finding young people interested in engine work. Why do you think that is, and how can engine builders, or just the industry in general, draw more people in?
Well, I think younger people don't like the stress of it. We had a guy, and we're great friends still, worked with me for about just over a year, I think. Trained him up a lot. He knows how to do the job and stuff, but I think he can get paid more doing way less stressful job, and he'd prefer that, and so that's why he's no longer with us. And Jerome is older than me. Jerome's like 43 or 44, I think, and I'm 36, so Jerome is my generation, and Jerome's generation, I think, are more... Jerome's also ex-military as well, like me, so we can be very harsh to each other without getting offended. We can stay until whatever time it... And the other employee, he was like that too, but ultimately didn't persist because he just can get paid elsewhere doing a low intensity, low stress job and whatever. For me, the passion is there to do it more than I care about being stressed. So it might have high blood pressure sometimes, I don't know, but it's worth it.
So how do we share that passion then? How do we grow that passion in the younger generation? Or is it just something you're born with?
Yeah, you have to be into it. Like, I could never imagine going from doing what I've done, like, since I was a kid, to go and saying, like, being a guitar player and being, like, really passionate into music industry and just leaving everything I've done. I could never see that happening. So I don't think that someone who hasn't been passionate about it since a young age... I'm not saying that you're born knowing what you're going to do. Right? I want to be a hockey player forever, right? And all kids want to do something like that, astronaut, hockey, a football player, whatever, right? But then, by the time I was early, mid-teens, like I think 13, 14, I knew, I was well into all this performance aftermarket racing kind of stuff.
To your earlier point about social media, maybe that's one of the ways, to get the younger generation interested in it. Because, that's where they are 24/7, is on social media.
Yeah. So, like, posts like I post, maybe will appeal to people like, oh wow, look, that looks cool, it's beautiful, like I'd like to do that one. That maybe, customers going down the track and stuff, sometimes you post, hopefully they have appeal from that. I don't know, I mean, it's a great sense of like, I love, like, building the engine, giving it to the customer, and they go down the track and they phone me, Steph, we just ran this, we just won this, like, thank you so much. Like, that's awesome, like, to be able to provide that to someone, and that feeling that you get from just that, it's great. It's like in the army, you're serving your country, and now I'm, like, kind of serving racers. Like, it's like, same kind of thing. Some of the problems in the industry from some of the manufacturers are probably the people that care more about the money than they care more about their passion of actually supplying, a certain part for a certain timeline.
So what was one of your inspirations for getting into the market? Is there something that can inspire young people or anyone today to become an engine builder?
Movies definitely help. 100%. No matter what it is, you watch a movie and you're going to want what's in that movie. maybe want to do what was happening in that movie. Like, this is an extreme thing. So like our generation, 2001, I think, the first Fast and Furious movie, you know, that was highly based on a drag racing, a V8 scene and import scene stuff. And when I saw that, you know, and seeing the tools and the shop layout, they showed a little bit of, I was like, wow, that's, you know, that was a big inspiration for me to want to do it. And I really think now if the industry had something like that, you know, you have like Engine Builder magazine and other magazines that are really making stuff really accessible for people to find a lot of information out and see these events. And drag and drive is huge, and YouTube is the new, I guess. Yeah, so we talked about before, like magazines, being a kid looking at magazine articles and all that stuff, flipping through and saving your favorite article and always going back to that. I guess now the kids are doing that, but on YouTube.
Right.
And, you know, having all the drag and drive stuff and performance engine building, racing engine stuff available on YouTube, I think really would help the younger people.
So, you know, for someone like me who, you know, is, again, not in this industry, can you explain what drag and drive is and why it's become so popular?
So drag and drive is start a whole week, Monday to Friday. You start on Monday with your race car at the track with usually a small U-Haul trailer kind of thing behind your race car, your race. The fastest you can go down the quarter mile on Monday, and then as soon as you've got the fastest time that you are happy to hand in, that time slip, you will then get in that actual car, put the trailer on the back and drive it 100 to 300 miles up the road to the next track. And it'll repeat that until Friday, and then Friday it'll be a round robin. You'll come round to the original track, so you might do 1,000 miles. It normally is 1,000 to 1,500 miles in that week. And these cars can be 15, 16 second, completely factory cars. They can be, you know, 5, 6 second pro mods that have a radiator in them that drive on the street, you know, and it's awesome, and everything in between. So there's a class for everyone. It's really obtainable for someone to do. It's not a league or like a series or championship. It's just you register, you show up, and you do the best you can with what you can afford or what you like, or the passion of what kind of racing you want to do. They have bracket racing there. They have hot rod classes, Volkswagen classes, you know, 8-second classes, normally aspirated, stick shift classes. There's something for everyone, or completely unlimited, which is what our car goes in, and it's like it's pro mods or steel roof and quarter type pro mod cars, which have, you know, 4,500 horsepower, and it is really, it's great because it's all these different cars and different racing on one property, you know, each day, and then they're all driving down the highway, and there's pictures of them on the highway, these crazy cars like with trailers on it. It's awesome.
What do you think the future of the industry looks like? You know, how much farther can engines keep getting pushed?
I think with technology that it's always evolving, and parts are always evolving. I think it's crazy to see already, you know, a pro mod going 3:48, I think is the record. Not in pro mod, but outlaw pro mod. I think that's going to get pushed. It's hard to imagine it getting pushed, but I think it will. Like, you know, when the 3-second barrier was broken, I'm sure people thought that's going to be insane to go faster, but now like it's down at 3:48, you know, and X275, for example, now is in the 4.0s now. Maybe next year that might be in the 3s, and it's a small block with an 88mm turbo or something, or a big block with nitrous or a small block. And that's crazy, you know. Yeah, I think things will start getting pushed a lot, and I think that's why you've seen our builds evolve from a lot of cast blocks to billet blocks, because of how fast people need to go now to compete. The cars are basically pro mods now, steel roof and quarter pro mods with steel doors maybe and steel fenders, but glass hood, Lexan front and back window, you know, like my Nova is like that. All steel or glass, arguably should all be all steel or glass, and that is an example of a class that has gone insane, like running 380s, stuff. It is crazy, and every class is like that. And then they get hit with weight breaks because of a certain combination will outshine other combinations by like a tenth, and they'll hit it with a weight break, and then it'll go slower again, and then it'll just, people will find a way to get around it. And as engine builders, racers, we're all always looking for what's next and where to get more out of the chassis, the transmission, gear ratios, an engine with way more torque down low than a smaller engine without much torque, and using like Hemis, for example, over 10,000 RPM, you don't have the low end torque, but you've got the high end RPM capability, so you can run a much lower gear ratio to help for the short track and run out the back, because you can do that. All this stuff, like all these combinations of different things people put together, it's just insane. Like people that are just into drag racing, that aren't into like the extreme, like how fast the small tire and pro mod stuff, and won't understand all ins and outs of everything that goes into making them fast, and it's just, everything is just getting faster and faster and faster, and it's insane. And I love being a part of it. It's great, and it's really cool, and I'm really excited to see what it does. But yeah, it's cool.
Though the road Stefan Rossi took to start Ace Racing Engines was long and winding, his persistence and passion for engine building powered him through to the front row of the race. It's this tenacious resolve and passion for the industry that makes him a vehicle care rock star.